We will post that up so that everybody can have access to this information. We know that everyone wants to be in here right now, but sometimes we have to also work within these limits as we're learning our new world. I hope everybody is able to catch your breath and do things. The first thing we want to make sure of is that our purpose right now is just to try to give some kind of sense of calm and structure. We will be able to get through this. It's not ideal. It's not anything we know any of us want to be doing right now, but we are able to do it. And we know that we're all kind of grieving right now for the change that we've all experienced that was very sudden. Most of you did not have an opportunity to say goodbye to your kids. And that's a real big thing. I know I'm dealing with that with my own kids at home right now as well. So, so just so you know, that's kind of where we're going with this next time that we have together. But we have several of us that are on that are going to help give you some guidance and some ways to get through this. My name is Melissa Algren. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the Director for Reading Sufficiency. Timmy Spangler, are you able to unmute yourself? Is waving for those of you that can see on our screen, but we've got 15 different screens. Are you able to speak, Timmy? Unmute yourself. Nope, that might not work. But Timmy Spangler is also
unmuted. I'm unmuted.
She is the Director of Instructional Materials and Library. So she has a wealth of knowledge to help us out with that. Brenda Chapman. Brenda, are you able to unmute yourself for a moment?
Yes, and I appreciate all of you joining us today, and I'm the Director for Social Studies.
Okay. Susan Ray is our Science Instructional Specialist. She just sent me a text that she was not able to get in. She was on the grades 3 through 5 meeting and trying to hop over to the other one. It just filled up, but we do know that Susan is an excellent resource in all things science. And then, of course, Robin is our Director of Gifted and Talented AP, but she's also our former elementary math director. So she is also a wealth of knowledge with math as well. So Robin, do you want to talk to us a little bit about distance learning?
I do. So as we start thinking about this new world that is distance learning, we want to really think about that distance learning aims to provide a continuous learning opportunity for students. We're still in that 2-week window. The State Board of Education had an emergency meeting and extended spring break 2 weeks. And in that 2-week period, the guidance was given that there could be no grading, no work that is happening as a mandate from the schools. And so if you as a teacher wanted to do that and you wanted to do things to get prepared, that was fine. And then this past Wednesday, the State Board of Education met and decided that we would move into a distance learning opportunity for the rest of the year to keep our students and our families and our teachers safe. So what distance learning means is that it's a continuous learning opportunity that may or may not include technology. Many people have made synonymous online learning and distance learning, but they are not the same thing. Each district now has a mandate of developing their own distance learning plan. So your district administrators have been working on that, and they will continue working for the next week to think about what does distance learning look like for your district, for your students, your parents, and you as teachers. And each district will be coming up with their own way of doing distance learning. We as a State Department have developed some guidelines and some, not guidelines, but guidance that is going out and some suggestions of how that can help. And we're going to be sharing those documents with you live later in this webinar. But we just wanted to know that we've got some guidelines that are out there to help you, but districts are going to be afforded flexibility. That's not become our middle name, that's become our first name these days, that we're all being flexible. And so how districts meet the needs of their students and of their families is going to be up to the district. Our goal here is to maintain knowledge and to continue that learning in the atmosphere that we have of the homes, and supporting our families also as they support the learning. This is not going to look like a regular school day. This is going to look very different, and each district's going to approach it very differently. But I want you all to know that the State Department Office of Curriculum and Instruction is just an email away. We may also be working from home right now, but we are accessible via email. As you can see on the agenda, all of our names are blue and underlined. Anything in our document that is blue and underlined is a link. And so you would be able to click on that link if you have accessed this agenda, and you can email us. But we would love to help support you, guide you, and all of this as we're going through. And what now, you also need to make sure that you give yourself grace. When something doesn't work, give yourself permission to move on. So if you try an idea and it doesn't work out, scrap that idea and move on to idea number 2 or number 3. We're going to be flexible, and we're also going to be supportive of each other. We're going to talk that we can share supports, but we want you to know that this time of distance learning is something new for all of us, but we are here to support you. And one of the most important things in distance learning is taking care of yourself. And so which of my teammates, I forgot, who's covering Susan's section there?
I will. Guys, we are in unprecedented times, and so there, you know, like we said, if something doesn't work, this is, I kind of feel like this is something we have to give our selves permission to take care of ourselves. I have a 5th grader at home, and he really thinks that yesterday during one of our meetings that I was crying. I wasn't. I don't know why. It has hit us that we have been working since the Sunday before spring break started, and it just really, I've just been so busy. The reality of what's going on really just hit me in the last couple of days, and I keep thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is really real. I can't believe this. But it is important that we take care of ourselves, because many of us have young kids at home also. So, you know, you're trying to work with your students, but you're also having a student at your house that you're having to work on. And so give yourself some grace, and give, you know, each other grace. Because I know it's tough, and it's hard not seeing your friends and your coworkers and your kiddos in your classroom. So there's no right or wrong way. And support structures that are within your school family, within your home family, if you're all confined into one area. And that's been a hard part for me, is trying to separate that work and home. Because even yesterday, after I should have quit working, I was still working. And, you know, my colleagues, Melissa, she may be shooting emails, and Brenda may be shooting emails, and we even did a practice Zoom meeting yesterday to see how things were going to work, because this is kind of uncharted territory, and it, you know, something may not work. And if it doesn't, it's just like being in the classroom. Sometimes you have to shift gears and do some changes.
You know,
Timmy, I'd also like to add what Robin said. This is not going to be a typical day, so you need to think about yourself too. If you like to cook and that helps you with stress, that's what you should take time to do that. If you like to read or listen to music, because we're all under some stress here too, and what it's going to look like. And it's not going to be a regular day where you have to be sitting at your computer for 8 hours. So think about things that are good for you and good for your family to be doing during this time.
And it is so hard, because your daily commute is now about 4 seconds across your house. So it's a little different. So we're all learning this. Your students will be learning the same way too as we go along. Something we want to talk about here is ways that we can make our great state seem not so large. And so inside of our document today on the screen, you see a list of, or a table that says collaboration. And what we want to do is think about the different situations we're in across our state. Some of you are in areas where one-to-one is no problem and there's a way to get information to your students and families quickly. And some of you are still dealing with broadband issues and internet within your house or within your students' houses. And so we wanted to be able to crowdsource some of your favorite activities that you're thinking about right now of how can we help kids learn at home. So you're not going to be able to do this. You can do this right now, or you can do this later. Or if you're watching this as a recorded webinar, you're going to be able to click on these links. But these 4 things right here are all links that will take you to 4 separate Google documents that are just waiting for you to fill up. They are blank tables ready to be full of information. And this is a way that if you found something that works, you can share it. Share it with other 1st and 2nd grade teachers. We've got some principals here that are definitely going to be looking at these ideas and passing them along. I see we have some instructional coaches that have joined us today. They're going to be sharing some of these ideas. And we also have some district administrators on. They're going to be using some of these resources to help out. So this link will stay live. These documents will reference these ideas in future virtual meetings that we have with you guys, but we wanted you to have a place to share resources and to gather information from others. So again, anything that is blue and underlined is a live link. So you'll be able to click on this table here of collaboration, share ideas in here of how you help kids learn at home, and then we'll be able to reference those from other people. Who's going to talk about the guidance document?
I think that is me. And I'm going to take over. Can I take over the screen sharing, or can you click on that for me?
I can click on it for you.
All right. So, you've got stuff all over your screen too, I've noticed.
I don't know where that's coming from. I'm going to work on that.
Okay, this was just released this morning. So there is distance learning for grades 1 through 2. Also for those of you that teach more than 1 grade, or some of our coaches or administrators, that distance learning for, there's also a guidance for pre-K through K, for 3rd through 5th, as well as the secondary content areas. So you can find the digital version of these documents here for all of the grades, not just this one, at this website, which I'm going to put into our chat very quickly. That way you can find out where those are going to be housed. Okay. Some things to consider that we wanted to make sure were on this distance learning document is really, this is not your typical 6 to 7 hour school day. You are not going to be able to fill that amount of time, and our parents are working at home. They're either working at home, they are dealing with students of multiple ages, they're dealing with new babies, caring for parents, or even trying to still work out of the home and having to do this in the evening. So that full day of learning is just not going to be a reality for a lot of our families, and we need to acknowledge that. So what we might be asking them to do are things that are around the house. Our goal here is for reviewing things that we've already learned and for providing enrichment. Some of those things that you've always wanted to do with your kids to go a little bit deeper, but just really haven't been able to, take this opportunity to maybe explore some of those ideas. Things like retelling stories, having kids write or journal, building some of the knowledge around their world, using games as a way of practicing math skills and oral language and communication skills, going on nature walks and finding things. So that can be some things of, we're exploring some of our science concepts through our nature walks, but we're also exploring our vocabulary, our ways of communicating, and then coming back and journaling about what we found so that we can practice some of our writing skills as well. So a lot of those types of things. One of the things that I think is going to be really essential for this grade band in particular that I'm getting a lot of questions about is, how do we do phonics instruction for parents? And that's really going to be difficult. Any kind of those word recognition skills like phonics and phonemic awareness, those might be things that we just have to give permission to. Here's some games to practice, but we're not going to try to address that. This is our opportunity to build up the background knowledge and the vocabulary, that comprehension side of where we want kids to be, so that when they come back to school, then we can go back into those lessons, because some of those things are just require too much technicality to expect a parent to be able to do, especially given the stress that they're already under. So that's where we need to be able to give ourselves some permission for that as well. Okay. Thinking about the materials, if Robin, if you'll scroll back up just a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go, number 3. When we think about reading instruction, don't worry about a level of a book. This is not the time for that. This is really the time for enjoyment reading, a lot of oral reading. Let them listen to books, whether it's an audio book or a parent reading with them or a sibling, and discuss what they have. But don't worry about trying to get to a specific level. Just throw that out the window for right now. Let them read different things. It doesn't always have to be a book. It can be listening to something. It can be a magazine. It could be reading cereal boxes at breakfast. Helping a parent read a recipe as they're getting ready to cook, looking at a daily message from a parent or a teacher that's coming out, provides some of that practice as well. I know my 4th grader's teacher has been sending through Seesaw just a daily message, and just having her read it and talk about some of the different things and responding has been really helpful for her. Okay, keep on going, Robin. Don't worry about trying to grade everything. That's not our intent at this point in time. Our intent is to provide opportunities for that review and practice. So I know that's one of the questions I've seen a lot on social media is, how are we going to collect things to grade? You might not, and it's okay. If there's something that you do want them to share with you, so you can provide some feedback and interest and ongoing, things like having them scan a document and send it. This is one my high schooler was working on. If you have an iPhone and that Notes app, if you create a new note and hit the camera, you can automatically, it'll scan to a PDF and you can email it. So that's another way of getting those types of things. And then involve family members in areas of feedback. Schedule some calls with parents or with students. They have an opportunity to schedule a Zoom call. If you have that capability, that's great. Mailing a letter with paper and stamp can also be helpful. Just follow CDC guidelines whenever you're sending documents. But having those opportunities to talk to parents is really helpful. There is specific guidance that has been put out by our special education department. It's very comprehensive, so we put the links there, as well as for working with English language learners. Since we're focusing on grades 1 through 2, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But
can you possibly tell me why
education or EL students? Those are links to give you to the guidance dealing specifically with that. So,
can you see stuff?
But just to reiterate too, some of the things that Timmy was talking about, give yourself grace, give your kids grace, give your parents grace. It's not going to look like what we're used to doing. It's okay if it doesn't. We're working on all of this together. We're focusing on practicing the content that was learned earlier this year. We're giving some enrichment opportunities to reinforce that. And we know that when we come back in the fall, all of our kids are going to have that review. And it's just going to be how things are done, not only in Oklahoma, but all across our country. So thinking about our sample structure and what's been recommended, what is going out to district administrators as a recommendation is that for this grade band, 30 minutes of either read aloud or independent reading, depending upon what's appropriate for your students, including some kind of reading tasks or writing prompts. And we'll go a little further into that in just a moment. Up to 20 minutes of some kind of math lesson or application, some games. My kids like to play dominoes. And so 20 minutes of a domino game where they're having to keep score and work with that, that's considered a math activity at this point. 20 minutes of science or social studies, some kind of overarching project, one time a week. And then some flexible time for physical education, music. Listen, pull on some music and have a dance party. Go out and chalk the driveway and create art. learn some different ways of, if you have any knowledge of like Spanish, counting to 10 in Spanish and making your kids practice that. So just some of those things. The exact structure that you will be expected to follow will come from your district administration. These are just guidelines that we are giving as an idea to keep it from getting this idea that we have to get to 6 to 7 hours of learning. We did put a few instructional resources that are web-based on here for those of you that have that capability. Story Online, this is where actors are actually reading different books. This could be a great opportunity for students that need to listen to different stories. You could say, everyone go on Story Online and listen to this book this week and answer 2 or 3 questions about it, and then come back and tell me about it when we have our conversation, or send me a letter about it, or tell your grandparent and tell them about this story. The caller in Colorado, that's at the very top of page 3 on the agenda, that's not a misspell, that is actually the way it is spelled. This is an excellent resource for your English learners. There's resources there both in English and in Spanish. And then that room gives some wonderful suggestions for just learning in everyday situations. And those are some suggestions that might even be used for those students that don't have technology capabilities, just to give you some ideas as the teacher trying to do that. There's been some additional technology resources. You'll see a link there for some different ways to keep in touch for those of you that have technology access. But we've also provided some different activities in this learning menu. And Robin, if you'll click that 1st and 2nd grade example learning activities link, and that'll take us to a learning menu that we've been setting up. And this is the majority of this is non-technology options. So some different things of some categories, like addressing reading fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Remember I said we're not focused on trying to get down to the nitty-gritty of phonics and phonemic awareness at this time, just because it requires too much for our already stressed families. So we're going to be doing a lot of things orally, and that's okay for this group and at this time. So some different things that they can be doing, like playing word games, giving, you could provide a list of multiple meaning words like bat and deck, and say, choose one of these words and come up with a whole bunch of different meanings. Do a word web and see how many meanings you can come up with these, and give some challenges for them to look those types of things up. That's a great way of increasing their vocabulary that really doesn't require a lot from you other than just give them a list, and those are very readily available. Challenge kids to read, to have a word of the day that they're reading from, and use it often in their conversations. They can practice fluency by, you can demonstrate, if you're able to make a short video and show different ways that you can read text in a fast way, a slow way, a whisper, just so that we can practice the reading. Just remind parents it's accuracy, not speed, that's what's important there. Different ways of just asking questions, having them retell a story, make up a story with a different ending after they've already read something, but just reading what they're enjoying. Choosing a topic, say my youngest is very involved in penguins and loves penguins, and so we've been downloading a lot of stories, both stories and informational text about penguins, so that she can just read a bunch on that topic, and that's really helping to increase her knowledge. It's increasing her vocabulary with that, and that's something pretty easy for us to do, because then at dinner every night it's, what did you learn about penguins today? Well, tell us something new. And that's another way of giving her some feedback, and for her to be able to report out what she's doing that's not as intensive for us to be able to monitor. Moving on down, we've also have some options there for both handwriting. This is that opportunity for students to practice some handwriting, as well as just plain writing, having them build sentences, encouraging them to write different types of sentences, for example, about their dog. What can you tell me about your dog? Well, my dog is happy, or my dog is fluffy. Can you write a question about your dog? What does my dog like to eat? And then asking them to insert more descriptive words or phrases to lengthen the sentence. And that's something that can be better explained to parents as a way of helping to increase their students' language ability as well. Social studies has some different options here that we can do, like playing a game without rules and think about what happens, and trying to talk about, do we need rules? There's some great guiding questions there. This is another way also of connecting with their grandparents that they're probably missing, to be able to do FaceTime or a call with their grandparents and say, what's a tradition that you had when you grew up with? And then be able to talk about that together as a family. And so kind of reconnecting with those types of things that all address what we've been trying to learn. And then as we keep on going, remember I said games is a great way of addressing math skills. We've put a few links on there. I'm sure that we'll have a lot more that are coming in. Yes, Julie, those links are all going to be emailed to you as well. So, and the learning menu document is also on here too. We'll show you where to find that in a second. But being able to play some of these games and some articles like from Marilyn Burns, playing that 4 strikes and you're out. So kind of like playing a math equation like Hangman, and seeing if they can use what they know about math and being able to figure out where the digits might go in a math equation. Collecting items from around the house or the yard and charting them and making a graph, and then being able to talk about what they're noticing in their graph, or building patterns from that. And seeing what would go next. And then as far as science, there's been several options given there, like observing what's going on with the sun and the moon and the stars, and journaling about that. Looking at the different weather changes they might see and talk about those types of things as well. And then finally, at the very bottom of this, thank you, you'll see some different questions, and this might be something to send out to families to say if they don't know what questions to ask when they're listening to or reading a book with their child. These are just a short list of questions that you can send to families to say, here you go, this is a way that you can talk to your child about what they're learning. Pick 1 or 2 questions off of this list after they've read a story and see if they can answer the question. So as we come back to our main guidance, wait till we get there and scroll on down. We have our different example activities. There we go. We've got a few more things there with a few other links. Like, for example, you might even ask your student, like I mentioned, my 4th grader that loves penguins. Her goal this week, I've told her to get on the San Diego Zoo for Kids website, and that's where she's having to do her research to find out about penguins, and she has to report out on that every night, what she's doing. Some different math picture books that we can use to reinforce some of those concepts. But as we're doing this, it's really important to remember that you aren't alone. It's not only the thousands of teachers across Oklahoma, but the tens of thousands of teachers across the nation that are all trying to do this together. And so we have, as we're working through and finding more resources, we're trying to vet those to make sure that what we're giving you is quality, and that we're not, because I know I have been very overwhelmed with all of the emails and the social media links of, hey, this is free and here's something else you can do. But we're trying to kind of go through that so that you have maybe a little bit better list, that you know that if you're getting that, it's actually worthwhile. If you already have subscriptions through your district, take advantage of those, because that's something your kids are already familiar with. At the same time, we also want to make sure that we're not sending out links of, hey, this is free, but it's only for 2 weeks. That's not going to do you a lot of good. We want to make sure that what you have access to is going to actually be helpful for you and your kids. So if you keep on going down, you'll see all the different ways that you can connect. So some of you probably are already involved in some of these Facebook groups. Some of you might not be aware, but we also have some different Twitter accounts to follow. And I noticed that there's also, you can also follow me on Twitter as well. For some reason that got taken off. I'm not quite sure why. And then we will have a virtual meeting every week, starting on Fridays from 2 to 3 o'clock. We wanted to do these in the afternoon, thinking that it might be more more districts might be trying to work with students in the mornings or have some of those meetings in the mornings. So we were thinking Friday from 2 to 3 might be a time that's a little bit more available. So you can click on that Zoom meeting and just kind of come in and touch base. What's working for you? What's not working for you? Maybe is there a situation that you ran into that you might need somebody to help you brainstorm solutions? We may not have all the answers right away, but the only way we're going to get them is as a community if we're working together on some of that. So, and then keep on scrolling down, and we do have some contact information for a lot of our staff. Like we said earlier, we are not in our office. We're working in our homes just like you are, but we are at our emails constantly. So you can reach us at any of those email addresses if you have any questions or something that's just burning that you're like, I can't wait. I really do need to have an idea how this is going to work. So coming back to our agenda, are you on our agenda yet, Robin?
Melissa, before we jump into this, I want to remind everybody, because there's been a couple of questions here, where the learning activities
a question in the chat about RTI processes and retention. So there is going to be a Zoom call dealing specifically with RSA, mainly for administrators on Monday morning. But the reality is interventions are really just difficult for parents to be able to do. That may just have to be suspended for a little while. It might just, if you're able to provide some ideas for parents so that they can keep on with those practices, wonderful. But we know we cannot do progress monitoring assessments. We cannot do end of year assessments for screeners. That's just not going to be happening. That's not a fair ask of you. It's not a fair ask of our students and our parents. So that part we're just going to have to let go right now. And thinking about this is continuing to build on kids' strengths and being able to give them practice for what they are able to do at home. So that way we can try to just help everyone breathe a little bit. As far as back on our, do we go back to our agenda so that we can see where the COVID FAQs are?
There they are.
There we go. This is being updated by the State Department regularly. This one was just released last night. And Robin, if you'll go ahead and click on that one real quick, please. This is now up to 20 pages long, but one of the things that they are making sure that they do is they're putting in new or updated anytime there is new or updated information that we need to make sure that we're aware of. Down at the bottom of page 10, there is specific guidance about paper packets given from the CDC. We want to make sure that we are aware of that so that if we are giving information to parents and teachers and we are not able to use that technology, can we use paper packets? And so we have some very specific information there from the CDC. So if we are using that, please make sure you're following that so that we can keep everybody safe and healthy. That was probably the biggest thing that I knew. Any guidance about assessment is on pages 7 and 8. Obviously, we have heard that we will not be doing state testing this year. I know that that doesn't always affect this age group, but RSA end of year assessments are also not happening this year. So we can take that off of our plate and not have to worry about that. So that was the biggest part of what I had. What are some other questions? Are there any other questions maybe coming up in the chat?
So people
are there specific curriculum requirements? Really, that's going to come from your district of what they want you to cover. What the recommendation from OSDE is that this is a time to review concepts and to provide more enrichment, but not necessarily to try to get a bunch of new learning in. But your district will be giving you what specific requirements that they want to make sure that they're taking care of. We will also post this link where it's sending out, I'll be posting it on all of our social media outlets, and we can also find that on the website as well. So we've posted in this chat box. You can always copy off of the chat box and put the link. just on your notes real quick, or take a picture of that so that you can access it. But all of the things that we showed you today have active links on our web page, so you can access all of that. I was kind of going back up in the chat to see if there were any other questions.
And Melissa, people have been asking, so guys, this bit.ly link right here, that will get you to
any other new questions that might want to go in there. Okay. Robin, do you have anything else to add?
Say, can you guys hear me? Let's see.
Yes, Robin, we can.
Okay, perfect. So you guys have been asking a couple of things. This bit.ly.
Robin, I think you're muted.
Brenda, can you hear me?
We can't hear you.
I can hear you perfect. For some reason,
I can hear you perfect also.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so we'll keep going. So this bit.ly address here, guys, a couple of you have asked where resources are. If you will copy down this bit.ly address, I've put it in the email or in the text box or the chat box. That will take you to our agenda and it'll pull it up. Again, everything that is blue and underlined is where we have links to things. So the guidance document that Melissa did a great job sharing through is this document right here. That will link you just to first and second grades guidance document. Inside of that guidance document is, inside of here is where Melissa went through all the different links. And so she talked about that learning menu, and that learning menu is right here. She talked about tools for instruction, for technology. All of these are active links. This is a PDF. We have created at the Office of Curriculum and Instruction one of these for every grade band and for every content area. And so those are going to be on the State Department page as of today. All of this guidance went live today. So this is something that you'll want to look at. Again, this is guidance we're putting out. We are just the Office of Curriculum and Instruction. So we're working on guidance for instruction for you and your district administrators in the classroom. Special education, ELL, assessment, all of them will be putting out guidance documents as well to help you and your district navigate this distance learning and be walking you through this. The one thing I also want to share is, as you were going through and looking at pieces when we went to the learning menu, they're all Google links, because as you share activities with us, we will be constantly adding to those. Everything that we have shared with you today can be linked to your district's webpage. So as you're thinking about how do we get this stuff out to our parents, you can use this, take these links and put them on social media. You can put them on your district website. If you use apps such as Remind or GroupMe or other things with your district, you can send those out through there. They're also printable. If that's an option you wanted to do. Melissa talked about making sure we follow the World Health Guidelines when we're talking about paper in these times that we are in. So thank you guys so much for joining us. And Melissa did a great job reminding you that this is going to be a weekly, every day, every week meeting. So right here every Friday, not today because we're meeting at 11, but starting next week, every Friday from 2 to 3, we will be having this meeting. Zoom link that you'll click, it'll be the same link every week. Every one of these will be recorded. So what that means is that you're able to get to these. If you're not able, if you're busy that day, we will record all of those. And on that COVID-19 instruction page, we will start housing all of the recorded webinars. Not did just 1 through 2 have one today, but we had there will be an RSA one, there was a 3 through 5, and the upper grades will be in content area ones. We'll also be doing gifted and talented, and your specials teachers will be having a webinar, a virtual meeting also. So we'll be housing all of those, and they will be occurring on a weekly basis so that we can stay connected to all of you. So as we finish up with a couple of minutes today, Melissa reminded you to make sure you're putting things in the chat box. And is there anything, my other presenters, that you would like to finish up with our wonderful teachers today?
This is Susan Ray. I don't know if a lot was said about science, but I know first and second graders just love to get out and play and explore and ask questions. So those are the things that you're going to want them to do. I know you have the learning menu for that, but just that we want them to play and we want them to use their senses and explore and ask a lot of questions and just have conversations with their family about the things that they're observing and the questions that they have.
The other thing I want to remind you is don't forget this, the State Department of Education also created family guides. And so there are family guides on our website that you can access. Those are in English and in Spanish for all grades pre-K through 6 and in specific content areas. So those are also great ways to get information out to your parents and to your staff members. This is an ever-changing society these days, and we are learning to be very flexible. We are getting new guidance on a daily basis, and so is your district. So they're making the best decisions they can with the information we have. And so that's why we're just a click away. Somebody asked about the bit.lys for the other grades. I don't know if the other grades did bit.lys. I know 3 through 5 did, and I'll get you that 3 through 5 link. Those are the only other webinars we're involved in. And so all of the agendas and the recordings will be posted.
I wanted to say something. You're muted, Brenda. You're muted.
Okay, now better?
Yes.
I've got a delay or something. I just wanted to say that I know Susan and I would say for science and social studies, we just want the kids to be involved. So your social studies for first and second grades, a lot about their community, the traditions that their community has, why we have rules, you know, who represents us. So if they're playing, they could build a city. If you're talking, their friends have traditions. So just those civics ideas and just talking with them would be great.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I was just going to say that, you know, I'm thinking, you know, for future generations, because this is an unprecedented time, you know, even you guys might want to create a journal for yourself because, you know, 100 years from now, some kid in the classroom may be reading your journal. So of how we did school in this time. So think about that and, you know, take care of yourselves and don't sweat the small stuff.
I was getting a few questions on the chat about the RSA meeting on Monday. I've put it in here. It's in the chat bar. It says RSA meeting is on Monday at 10 o'clock and the Zoom link is already there as well. That's going to be primarily for people who are having to be in charge of the RSA meeting. We're not going to talk about instruction. We're going to talk about the compliance part for that. So just if you're aware, but you also might want to make sure your principals, or if you have a coach or a lead teacher that's in charge of that, send that on to them, please, too, because that way we can help make sure they're aware as well. Okay.
And that last link we just put inside the chat box, that is the link to the entire web page, or to the page that's got everything listed on there. There's guidance for every district or for every grade level. All of the Zoom links are on there. There's information. We also want to remind you of an announcement that went out yesterday, is that we will be partnering with OETA. And on Monday, they will be transitioning all 3 of their stations over to educational programming during the day. There is a 4 o'clock webinar today that will talk about that partnership and what that looks like. You can watch that webinar on the OSDE Facebook page. It'll probably be a very highly watched webinar. And so we'll be streaming it live on the SDE channel. Someone talked about the Panhandle doesn't get Oklahoma City channels. This is something I think different states are rolling out. And so we hope that hopefully those in the Panhandle that can pick up from our neighboring states, this may be something that they can do at home. And thank you, Melissa, for putting that information out. I also know that that information is being translated into Spanish. And so we can get that out to our EL families. So as we're wrapping up today, SDE friends, do you want to share any last parting thoughts with our teachers as we're about ready to head on?
No, I'm sure you guys talked about self-care, but just make an intentional time each day in your schedule. And since you're working from home, you really need that intentional schedule. Like, this is when I'm going to start. This is when this work day is going to end, and I'm going to be with my families. But put in your day something that you love to do. If it's read a book, take a walk, but make that intentional every single day to help us all get through this and taking care of ourselves.
I think we can't reiterate that part enough. And I've had to give myself grace, as well as my husband is home from work, as well as all three of my children, and giving them all some grace and some space for everyone to have some time to themselves, but also having everybody come together so that, you know, with especially teenagers, they tend to go off by themselves and you don't hear or see them for 2 or 3 days, of making sure that they come in and do have some contact as well. So just be kind to yourself, to your family, to one another, and remember that our students are dealing with the same thing, and you may have some that don't get a lot done, and that's okay too. We're going to do what we can, but you cannot force everybody else either.
So this is Brenda, and I'll just tell you that I had to learn something on the fly from home with people trying to show it to me at different places. And I'm a visual learner, so it was tough. And I will tell you, there was a lot of tears shed, but I was so excited when I finally got it at the end. So we're going to be doing some new things. So like we said before, give yourself grace. Not everything will work perfectly. Some things won't work. Trash it and start over with something else. And if you're struggling with trying to learn, we have a few people struggling with Zoom, trying to learn how to work it. Me too. So just don't beat up yourself about that. Like Susan said, give yourself some grace. And like, I had a few tears. It's okay. And it's better today. Like, I learned how to do something, and it wasn't perfect, but it was sent out and people were excited about it. So your kids are going to feel the same, I think, some of them.
And you know what, I like the grace part. We talked about our doors. My door just opened with the child popping in. I love when Timmy's son pops into our meetings. Dogs and cats are running around. So just remember, we're all in the same boat. We're all in this learning together, living within these 4 walls. And don't forget to take some time outside to walk. The weather is beautiful right now. A good walk outside, some sunlight does everybody really good. And so that's been a saving grace of mine. So if you have any last questions, you're more than welcome to utilize the chat box to put in there. But if not, we are so thankful that over 300 of you joined us today. We will be getting the chat box archived. And so all of the questions that were on there, we will make sure that they are attached to the recording. Those of you that are watching us on a recorded video, make sure that you utilize us directors through our email addresses that are on the bit.ly address so that you can do that. All of these will be housed on the State Department website, as well as the ones from all of the other grade bands, so that you can access it. And every Friday, 2 to 3, we'll be here for you, ready to go. So not seeing any other chat messages. Us SDE will stay for a couple of minutes, but thank you all so much for your hard work, for your passion, for wanting to get this right, for doing what you can for those kids. They love you. So thankful for my teammates. We could not have made it through this week without all of them. They have been my support and my rock, and they did a great job on today's webinar, sharing resources with you guys. But that's all for us, and thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week.